Unfortunately, I mean, in our Arab world, there's no sex education. And as you mentioned, it's relationship. So with the relationship, it guide, the child or let him know what type of relationship that he will be in. What's the consent, especially sexual consent. We don't have sexual consent like for example, in our Arab world.
Right.
Uh, because there's no education, so there's lots of ignorance about even the sexual consent.
Right.
So sexual consent is very important part of sex education. We have also as I mentioned, the puberty and adolescence.
Hmm.
When you are facing those without knowing, again, that's implicate, like, or put the child under negative picture or negative review for his body. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, precisely. That's, I always look at, I still do consider sexual education to be empowering. It's empowering yourself to rid
Mm.
yourself of any potential shame or any shame you may have had if, prior to acquiring the knowledge of your body, of the autonomy of how things work, as opposed to being fearful of it because you don't know or because you're made to feel from a societal point of view, religious point of view, um, you know, and any number of reasons, cultural reasons. You are empowering yourself. It's an empowering apparatus and method approach to understand, and it's also a way to empower someone else too. We always talk about having a partnership. We want to not just have a relationship, have a partner. Well, there is an equality when you're both empowered in knowing your body, understanding your boundaries, understanding consent. It's an equalizer. You're raising the bar together.
Absolutely, Matthew. I mean, many people ask me if because I live in UK, so why I direct my education or the sex education, whether for children or for adults, to the Arab world, because unfortunately, even with the relationships that we have the gender roles, like a man and woman, even in the relationship, and that's very, very wrong for a relationship to be successful and to succeed and to become like and to stay like for long, and especially if you behave like as I always say, okay, please don't consider gender role when you are in a sexual relationship
Right.
or emotional relationship, because as you mentioned, you are a partner,
Mhm.
and in this relationship there are two people. They are two persons, so it's not a man and a woman. There's like a partner and someone and his partner or her partner.
Precisely. No, I think it's the best way to look at it. As opposed to, yeah, I think it's the best way to look at it. Look at it as a partnership. You're joining together to do something great,
Absolutely.
to enjoy something great and potentially build something great together. So it is a partnership. It is a partnership into some great endeavor together. Um, I would even say what does it then, I'm curious, what does it have like, what effects? I mean, I can speculate, but what effects do you see or firsthand, or do you still see as as a consequence of not having any sex ed or any sexual centers for information in Arab countries, in Muslim majority countries? What are the
Mm.
effects on society, and not just from a cultural level, but on a societal level? What are the effects on society from both young women, especially women of all ages, but also young men as well?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, with according to the studies and according to the problems that I face in our
Mhm.
world, Arab world, I mean, the studies there, we don't have, unfortunately, any studies like, in the especially sexual or, those studies that deal with those problems in Arab
Right.
world. So most of the studies or all the studies that I depend on, it's in the westernized countries. Uh, so it's all the information there. because they, started with the sex education,
Hmm.
and they see, what's the difference between, having the sex education and not having the sex education.
Right.
So, and when I compare to the problems that I face, and because I get lots of messages, and texts, and lots of problems on my social media. One of the most important actually is the sexual shaming.
Right.
We talked about sexual shaming. Sexual shaming, especially for women, because with the even for the like masturbation, for example,
Hmm.
still we have in our countries, in some of our Arab countries like Egypt, Sudan, even in north of Iraq, we still have the FGM, the female genital mutilation, cutting that the clitoris. It's just, this is because of the, always shaming for female sexuality, and
Right.
unfortunately with again lack of sexual education, that's contribute to lots of sexual problems, especially in terms of the for the female bodies, like the vaginismus, like pain disorders, arousal disorders, again desire disorders, and orgasm disorders. So it's all those contributed because of, again, the important factor here is the
Right.
shaming, which is again exaggerated, or it's by the lack of sexual education. So it's very important.